Hi there. Warner Discovery had their big upfront panel this past Wednesday, May 14th, and I already made videos about the content news coming out of that, so I split this off as a quick update on the business side of things, where they announced that they're going to rename their Max streaming platform again. Rename it back to its original name, HBO Max. So now it's HBO Max, second of that name. I'm just going to go through this quickly. I split it off from the Dunk and Egg news because I don't want to distract from that. But when this first launched in 2020, their streamer was called HBO Max, which from day one was a really stupid name. I strongly disagree with articles going, no, you shouldn't have dropped it. You're missing the point, because they're going by the sound, by, it doesn't sound nice, versus the reasoning behind it. That it made no sense to call it HBO Max when the entire point was it's the streaming platform for all of Time Warner. The Time Warner corporate family of channels, which is everything from TBS to Cartoon Network. I also, this is subjective, I really didn't like that ugly purple logo they came up with, that style scheme, that it looks like the thing that the Sci-Fi Channel was using. The color scheme, the font, I wonder if they were even designed by the same person, that the resemblance was uncanny. Like when you see someone ripping off papyrus font or something, it's just, this is the Sci-Fi Channel font and color scheme. So I never liked any of that branding. Then in early 2022, Discovery Plus bought them out and they merged together as new company Warner Brothers Discovery under Discovery CEO David Zaslav. And they said we're going to merge the two platforms together, first launched in the United States in May of 2023. This new combined thing, which they said we're just going to call Max. And at the time, I did agree with their reasoning. I don't anymore, neither do they, but at the time, they put forward the argument. It's not, oh, we like the sound of Max. It's, they said, putting HBO in the title of something that's running everything from TBS shows to Discovery Shark documentaries to kids stuff, it dilutes the HBO brand name. And they never really found a way to distinguish what's the difference between a Max original and an HBO original. Even they didn't know that the original people in charge before Discovery were Bob Greenblatt and Kevin Murphy, and I have made videos about this if you want to poke around through my playlist of industry news. They were told to make like a food pyramid, where you're going to design this new streaming platform where the HBO stuff is at the top, and the bottom of the pyramid is all the TBS scale stuff, where it's cheap to make, doesn't make that much money, but the profit margin, it ends up at scale being profitable was the idea. Not only was that not really working, Greenblatt and Murphy basically just made a second HBO within Time Warner. Like, this is what screwed over Raised by Wolves, if you like that show. That wasn't an HBO show, it was a Max original. And while it was good enough to be an HBO show, they didn't have the numbers to sustain that. They were directly told, make a cheap TBS show that has a good profit margin, not a high-concept Ridley Scott sci-fi thing that caters to the genre fans but is hard for a general audience to get into. They really had no idea, because it's amazing how much they were stumbling into, I don't know how to make a streaming platform. It's this alien concept to them. Like, how did the other ones do this? Like, Netflix has the internal verticals and taste clusters. Disney Plus said they're going to keep, even though they just absorbed Hulu, they said, well, we're going to keep Hulu as a hub within Disney Plus because there should be different sections within the streamer for The Handmaid's Tale and other alien movies for Ridley Scott Alien Xenomorph universe versus what we put the children's cartoons on. All they had to do was reinvent the cable channel system on a streaming service, with sections for adult content and children's content and cheap content versus the high-end premium stuff. And they were fumbling around blind. It's amazing how little they really knew about how to do this. The first group of people, this is before even Zaslav, they were wasting a lot of money. He cut too much, but those things deserve to be cut. That, are we going to have this as like a food pyramid or what? That you need to have low-level shows, then higher shows. Then the bubble burst on the streaming boom. Remember just how it was hand over fist growth, throwing money at things 2019 through early 2022. Not only was that when Discovery bought Warner, that's when Netflix hit the subscriber ceiling. And Netflix has recovered from that. They are the only streamer that is this profitable. They are really profitable compared to all the other ones, which are only just beginning to break even. But those first 2 or 3 manic years, it was all about growth. They measured success in terms of subscriber growth, even when they were losing money. Because they said, well, we'll get that eventually. It's all about getting the eyeballs. Then we'll figure out how to make it profitable. So we are dealing with an era of the growing pains of, this entire decade is the shift from cable to streaming. Just as in the 90s and earlier, there was, when you look at the history of TV, in terms of pop culture history, the shift from when there were like 3 channels to when there was the cable universe in like 1980, and what's this CNN thing? Wait, there's a home box office. Changed the way that society, TV functioned. Of we're going to have sitcoms on TBS and things like that. We are dealing with a shift like that comes every 40 years or so. And thankfully we're getting around the curve now. Why did they rename it back? I agreed with the reasons that they gave when they named it first time. They said we're diluting the HBO brand name. Things have changed to the point they're not trying to make the food pyramid anymore. They're just trying to make the top of the pyramid, and that's the right thing to do. Look at this chart. Now, this is from 2 years ago, but when they actually sat down after the first 3 years of the streaming boom and looked at their numbers, most streamers get almost around 90% of their viewership comes from their top 20 shows. Well, 20 seasons, sometimes more than one season of the same show, but that's actually not too weird when you think about it, because how many premieres of actively premiering shows does a platform have in a given year? Their top shows that are the things YouTubers are doing live reactions to that are that popular. Maybe 2 big dramas and 2 big comedies per quarter of a year, right? Times 4 because it's quarterly, so that's 2 comedies, 2 dramas, 4 new series per quarter times 4 is 16. You're already pretty close to 20. So it's not hard to see how, it's basically fresh shows. New premiering shows are the bulk of what they do. All their old backlogged content, unless it's something like Friends or Seinfeld, which they will pay through the nose to get, you don't need that many shows. The nature of television, again, has changed. That it's weird when I see people in the comments yelling, we used to get 26-episode TV shows on an annual basis for like Star Trek or Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the late 90s. It's a different world from then. People yelling, why are we only getting like a 9-episode season for DC Comics stuff or Marvel stuff or the Star Wars things? Most things have fewer than 10 episodes now. 13, it went from being a 26-episode season to 13 to 10. Now less than 10 is much more common. It's 13 because 13 times 4, 52 for annual. That back then it was about, the actual mentality was fill the airwaves of cable channels with content to get people to not watch other channels that have content on at the same time. In the world of streaming, where there's hundreds of things on at the same time, that just isn't a thing. That isn't a strategy. And it will never, ever come back again. It is a different world. A switch has gone off. It's never going to be, or we're going to go back to the point where we have 26. Most of those 26-episode Star Trek seasons, that's why they didn't have good episodes. Like why you'd have 8 or so filler episodes that weren't very good. That they're not serialized like soap operas or the old Dragnet from the 60s and stuff. It is a quality over quantity world. And they didn't realize that for a while, and they realized that they openly admitted this at the panel. We have to scale back. All of the streamers have to scale back. Now they have to focus on profitability. And if we're only focusing on our top 20 to 30 shows, not for HBO, for the for the Time Warner family of TBS through HBO, for Disney, for the Disney corporate family of everything from the Disney Channel to ABC to Family Channel, all the things they own. The entire Disney media empire only needs 20 to 30 hit shows, by which I mean everything from Andor to the cartoon Bluey. Within that count of 20 things is enough to be a successful entertainment corporation, that they're just scaling back and there aren't going to be as many things. They realize this fits a lot better with the HBO mentality, and they are officially abandoning the intent to make the food pyramid, that we're not even going to try to make TBS scale shows anymore, when it only really comes down to making 20 good ones. So whereas before we said we're not going to slap the HBO name onto something like the Julia Childs show that they made, you don't remember that one? That's the point. That they had all these shows that they were putting out, like it was this really, they thought this would be their next awards show, that Julia Childs show when HBO Max first started. And, well, no, is this supposed to be an HBO show that gets awards? Is it supposed to be a Max-level show, that a TBS-level thing? They didn't know. They're now saying, screw it, it's HBO or it's nothing. And while that might alarm you, put another way, they're cherry-picking the best out of their other channels and lumping them into HBO. What I mean is, imagine if they said, tomorrow we are outright turning off permanently Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. Well, technically those are two separate things, but that if they said, tomorrow we're turning off Adult Swim forever, but we're going to start airing Rick and Morty on HBO. HBO has run cartoon programming over the years. That's most of the viewership for Adult Swim these days. If they said, well, it's mostly rerun, and I love the reruns and stuff, I watch it all the time, but if they basically said, obviously Attack on Titan just ended, but if they said, we're going to just put out the Attack on Titan stream we have through sharing, Rick and Morty, maybe one or two other of our top Adult Swim shows on HBO, and shut down Adult Swim, and this will be the Adult Swim block of HBO, like the old Spawn cartoon, all the other ones they did, yeah, that would still function pretty well. Also consider HBO at its height in the early 2000s didn't have a daily schedule for every day of the week. And they'd say, we're winning as a channel under the Richard Plepler era, and it's, you're winning on Sunday nights. You don't run things on weekdays or Saturdays, like, at all. You aren't even a full network. So, conclusion, I see why, and they did openly admit this, it makes sense, of we dropped the HBO to just Max when we're trying not to dilute the HBO name. Now, we really want the HBO name, not just as a desperation move, although it is, but we are actively, they said in as many words, we are actively embracing a quality over quantity mentality. We are canceling a lot of things. We are doubling down on our core franchises. They've repeatedly said this. That doesn't affect us, because my channel is for the Westeros franchise. The Westeros franchise is one of those core franchises. Last year, they've repeatedly said for their video game division, for example, but this applies to everything. For video games, we're sticking to just 4 things. DC Comics, Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, because it's a best-selling video game franchise, and Westeros. So a big part of their plan is hiring James Gunn was a brilliant move, and have James Gunn do for this, turn it into what the MCU is. And they have a 10-year plan for that. I have faith in James Gunn. I really loved Creature Commandos. It was technically his first entry in that. It blew my mind. Stick to the core franchises of like DC and Westeros. makes more sense to bring back the HBO name as a sign of that, and it's really the smart move. So it's funny, and thankfully they themselves they did the right thing, as news sites point out, of openly mock yourselves for doing this, that their social media things have been just posting all of these self-deprecating memes of, yeah, it's silly. Even at the panel itself, Zaslav had the wherewithal to realize the right thing to do in this is to make fun of yourself. I don't think he went, haha, it's fun. It's like, go out there and make fun of yourself, because there's no way you'll make a fool of yourself if you try to do it seriously. Just go out and go, yeah, but okay, this is why we brought the name HBO back. We're focused more on quality, and now it's more about profits. And the joke someone probably wrote for him, but that he cracked was, and hey, we have a warehouse full of stationery we can reuse really quickly. But they did the right thing there. Just own up to it was kind of a mistake. Another comparison I've seen people throw around is, you never know. What if this turns into a new Coke situation? Infamous example in marketing where Coca-Cola brought in the new Coke, it was really bad. Then when they brought back Coca-Cola Classic, it sold better than it ever had, because it reminded people of how much they liked the original. Time will tell on that one. Now, I'm just dashing this off. I'm not putting a lot of slides and not a lot of it. I'm doing this unedited because the big video I'm prepping for this weekend, which I already finished, was a 45-minute thing on this is how the HBO Max streamer international launch waves are going. I'm not going to re-record that. I'm going to put slides in and just have note. I recorded this before they changed the name back. Doesn't affect anything, but keep that in mind. Disclaimer. And just to address some of the Dunkin' Eggs stuff going on in the past few days since I made my other video, I said, look at the last two videos on my channel. I was making these state of the industry videos anticipating they're going to have a lot of announcements at this. They are doing a lot better than they were last year. Their streamer increased profit 6-fold. And I have a video titled, Zaslav cites House of the Dragon by name as one of their hits driving international expansion. No one is watching these. No one is listening. So the past 2 days, I've seen so many people actually saying, they've lost confidence in House of the Dragon. Oh wait, no, they must have lost confidence in Dunkin' Egg. They are citing House of the Dragon. It was measurably driving international growth, because they can tell from the streaming numbers. Dunkin' Egg was most probably moved to the start of 2026. Even like winteriscoming.net said, we can there must be not, if there were going to be reshoots, they would have in the past 6 months. They made no attempt to do reshoots. It sounds like everyone loved it. Even they admitted it must be for a scheduling hole. I think Euphoria is coming back then too, but it's not just a scheduling thing. It's the giant 800-pound gorilla in the room, the giant explosion that we were anticipating, which I at least was anticipating, because I'm trying to tell my viewers there's going to be this gigantic European launch early next year. That it took me all of 2 seconds to go, oh, wait, of course, they probably want to time it with the Europe launch. Because if the Europe launch is in like February, hopefully January, it does make more sense. Wait 4 months. Put it out then. It gets to get that much more exposure. Won't have to deal with people having to cancel their Sky Atlantic subscriptions. It'll be the centerpiece of their marketing blitz in Europe. It's better for Dunkin' Egg to wait for that. Like, if someone tells you, well, we're delaying your TV show because we want it to air 2 months from now, that's bad. We want it to air 2 months from now because we want it to be the direct lead out from the Super Bowl. Well, that's good. That's worth waiting for. So they want it in the international launch. Other stuff I heard is people saying maybe they want Dunkin' Egg to be closer to House of the Dragon to give Dunkin' Egg a boost because they don't have faith in it. They have every faith in it. And that's the weird thing. You don't get a boost from being the lead-in show to maybe same night. That's different. You don't get a boost from being the HBO show that was on before The Last of Us Season 2. They didn't think of White Lotus Season 3 like that. You get a boost from following a major show, because people buy their monthly subscriptions if they're sampling it. Case in point, last year, Penguin. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. whatever came before Penguin didn't get it in late August, didn't get a boost. Between that and House of the Dragon, Dune Prophecy got a big boost because it was the show that was leading out from Penguin. It was on the next week, and this is actually pretty good, and I kept watching it. So the idea that, they put it earlier to get a boost, if anything, our fear is that they might have lost some faith in House of the Dragon, which I don't think so. That either they want it to be close to Dunk and Egg to give it a boost, or they think it can stand on its own. But Zaslav is citing it by name as one of their hits, House of the Dragon. I'm not worried. Quite separate from that, accepting as a given that this has nothing to do with their confidence in either Dunk and Egg or in House of the Dragon. They appear to be confident in both. Nonetheless, purely as a ripple effect of, if they're putting it in winter in early 2026, for scheduling reasons, to be part of the Europe launch, does that mean they would delay House of the Dragon Season 3? We don't know, but I'm not worried, because, first off, they openly said the earliest it could be physically done is summer of 2026. And even then, they said, because they weren't filming yet, this is just a broad guess. That they never had a firm promise, definitely summer, and then they reschedule it. So can you say they pushed, pausing your emphasis, can you say it was pushed back from summer to fall before filming even started? Like, we didn't know how long it was going to take to finish to begin with. And there is an argument, and I can see the pros and cons of both sides, and tell me in the comments. If you have a franchise like Star Wars or Marvel, do you ration out your content so you have one show in spring and another in fall so there isn't a long gap? Or do you try to rebuild momentum by putting two shows back to back? Spring, then like a 2-week break, then summer. At this point, House of the Dragon lost some momentum from the strike and last-minute episode cuts harming Season 2. So, I don't think that they've lost faith in the showrunners. Put another way, a not negative way, maybe HBO realized they screwed House of the Dragon over, pissed off the fans, and maybe we should put it in summer next to Dunk and Egg so it rides off the success of Dunk and Egg. That's just a theory, but point is, we don't know. And for all the fear-mongering and the clickbaiting around, we think they're confident in the showrunners of both of these. And whether this pushes House of the Dragon to fall or not, that might even be a good idea in terms of not... I would go with rebuild momentum because we've been on break for a year and a half. You need to win the audience back for Season 3 after they messed with Season 2 like that by cutting the ending off. That's just me. Part of me also wants more time to prepare for Season 3, because on my end, I have to make lore videos weeks in advance for these things, and it takes forever. But I'm not worried about that in any way. That is tied to the Europe launch, and who's to say, just even in isolation, when would Season 3 have even been ready, given the massive scale of all the battles in it, and they only tentatively said it physically wouldn't be done before summer. That was just them saying not as early as spring. It's not the same thing as promising definitely a summer release. So I don't know. But this is the core of the show, that the climax of all the battles and everything, if they're going to end with Season 4, I am fine with that. And the HBO Max rename is fun, but yeah, it's because at this point you need to focus more on quality over quantity. I could even see why they changed the name in the first place, but even they've acknowledged it makes more sense to change it back now. It was called Max when it was the food pyramid of it's not just HBO. Now they're trying to announce it is just HBO because those other shows aren't profitable, which is finally focusing on what they need to focus on. That's where things stand now. And I'm starting to see more channel leaders watching my first video, thankfully, going, it's because of the Sky Atlantic launch. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage anyone, but some major channels, not clickbait channels, were unfamiliar with what is the name of the streamer that's in Europe. Is Sky something? And I remember someone had to explain to them it's Sky Atlantic. Much less were they aware that there is a they were genuinely unaware there's a gigantic launch in the UK and Germany next year. And it really didn't occur to them because no one does industry news. Am I the only channel doing state of the industry news, so I know why they're doing the things they're doing? And this is where it all pays off, that as opposed to going into a blind panic and losing it, like, I understand why this is happening and it's not a problem. I'm encouraged because this gives me an extension on I need to do all of that backlogged House of the Dragon behind the scenes stuff over the summer now, which I'm really looking forward to. Even just the bonus content, I always wanted to go over it on the scale of the first 2 seasons. So this is going to be this epic recapping of everything that I've always wanted to get to. I'm going to make scheduling videos after this one. But look ahead for this coming weekend. I'm making this Friday, but later this weekend I'm posting up the long-anticipated deep dive explanation on HBO Max International Expansion, which is why Dunk and Egg was moved to early 2026 to tie in with that.